Oh, I love that sound. I love that sound. And it's a little bit sweeter tonight because it is game week, baby. Welcome to the Vol Bros. My name is Evan. This is my brother Rustin. And we are two Vol Bros who are actually bros in real life. And we are celebrating 150 episodes. That is awesome. Our very first episode was the first week of November 2022. It was actually the week that Tennessee went to Georgia. And well, we just won't talk about the rest of that. So this is a great, great night. We're super excited. It is game week. Tennessee play the I was going to say the orange and white clad Volunteers, but the smoky gray clad Volunteers take Shields Watkins Field this Saturday. It is happening. And we already got some comments coming in. Let's see here. Mississippi Vol, welcome, buddy. Good to have you. He said, happy 150th, guys. It's game week. Absolutely. And he said, oh, shoot, didn't mean to put birthday, but you know what I mean. And Mina, like you said, they look great for 150 years old. I appreciate that. Yeah. Hey, if I live that long, that's a good life there. That's a big old life. Let's see here. Me, like I said, Ian Vol Bros, Reed and Gang, and I'm glad you said that because we do have to celebrate our 150th episode. The man, Mr. Reed Carringer, joining us. Welcome, Reed.
Guys, honored to be here on such a momentous occasion for you all and for the Vols, right?
Absolutely. We're glad you're here. You definitely make this show better. Let's see here. We got some other comments coming in. Me, like you said, so ready for this season and a Georgia Tech win. Crazy. Absolutely. Reed and I were just talking about that before we started. A little bit of a shocker. And if you haven't yet seen it, I was telling Reed about this. If you haven't yet seen it, earlier today, Georgia Tech's official Twitter account released a video. It is the most savage video I've ever seen from any official school's Twitter account. They just roasted College Game Day. I mean, it's incredible. You got to go watch it. I reposted it. I quote tweeted it on our profile. So if you're following us on Twitter or X, you can find it there. Monica, good to have you. It's good to see you. Like you said, go Big Orange, absolutely. And Eric said, what's up, Evan, Rustin, and Reed? It's 6 days till it's football time in Tennessee. Can't wait. Absolutely. Well, Reed, you are the man of the hour. We've got just a few questions for you here. So our first question, I think the defensive one, I think I know who you're going to pick for that. But the offensive one, people might say, I definitely know he's picking for that one. But I don't know. That could go a bunch of different ways. So I don't think anybody would guess my offensive one. But I'll save that for after you say it. But Reed, can you give us who Vol fans should expect to be the offensive MVP and the defensive MVP for this football season?
Okay, well, there's an obvious answer to, I think, and I'm kind of, I try to go outside the box a lot of times, but if we have watched Heupel now for several years, and we have a history of his offenses in major college football, right? And he has perennially a top quarterback every single year. And so it's really just, if I'm playing the odds, right? If I'm playing the odds on who's the MVP of this team, it might be that guy. It might be the quarterback, the 5-star, the guy who burst onto the scene in the bowl game and torched a very good Iowa defense. So yeah, I think you have to go Nico. I considered some other guys. I considered Squirrel White, a top 5-6 returning receiver in the SEC. Tennessee's passing game is going to be better this year, I think. So he was in the running for me. Dylan Sampson in the running for me. I know we're going to get to some surprise players later, but all those are in the running. But I got to go Nico. I've got to go Nico just for how quarterback centric Heupel's offenses are and what the numbers we've seen Tennessee quarterbacks put up under Heupel in Knoxville.
I think that's a great choice. Great choice. So I think that is the best choice. My dark horse, no one will ever pick this because they get no stats. Cooper Mays is my a dark horse offensive MVP. That dude is vital for this offense, especially for Nico's success. But he won't win it because he gets no stats.
Hopefully he's not getting, sacks allowed stats, and hopefully he's not racking up a bunch of stats. But that's a good one, and we talked about it last year, guys, on how much better that offense looked with him at the point of attack. That's a good pick. I hadn't considered that, but that's a solid pick for sure.
Eric said maybe even Chris Brazel could sneak in there and get offensive MVP, potentially, if he keeps showing out like he has been apparently in fall camp. But I think Reed hit the nail on the head with his feet and with his arm. It's going to be tough to beat Nico for that one. So what about the defensive side of the ball?
All right, defensive side of the ball. Again, I think there's an obvious answer there. The stud coming off the edge, James Pierce Jr. Our team's going to be able to scheme away from him consistently enough. Are they? And is Tennessee going to have enough pass rush on the opposite side of the field? I think he's good enough to overcome whatever people are going to throw at him. I think Tennessee's defensive scheme is good enough at putting him in positions where he can get some one-on-ones at times, and we've seen how effective he is, even in limited snaps, right? I mean, even in limited snaps and situationally, the guy's been pretty unstoppable. Again, I hate to be going with the obvious answer. It's not usually my move, guys, but I think when you've got a really talented quarterback and a really talented pass rusher, that's a pretty dadgum good start to a pretty good football team.
Amen, brother. You're pumping me up. Some other folks are definitely agreeing with you. Eric said he thinks it's James Pierce Jr. as well. He said maybe even Joshua Josephs. Reed, you made a good point. If people are focusing on James and trying to go away from him, then they're running into Joshua Josephs on the other side. So maybe he sneaks in there and listen, hey, 2 years ago, Joshua Josephs was the freshman everybody was talking about. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, James Pierce Jr. is like, hey, welcome to my sophomore year. And all of a sudden things switched people there. Bill, welcome, Bill. Good to have you. He said, my dark horse, I'm sticking with James Pierce Jr. Go Big Orange. It's hard not to like that pick for sure. That's who I was. That was my pick. ESPN just ranked him the #1 player in college football. That's a big deal.
No pressure, right?
Yeah. Especially coming from ESPN. They never throw Tennessee a bone. So that was pretty good. Herb, welcome. Herb, he said Ricky Gibson's going to have a good year. Hey, I like that. Going off the radar there a little bit. Get Ricky Gibson some love. Andrew, welcome, buddy. Good to have you. He said, congrats on the 150 episodes, Vol Bros. Hey, we appreciate that very, very much. Very, very much. Like he said, on the offensive side of the ball, Cooper is so important. We saw it last year when Joe was having to double check the line. That's a good point. Things changed after that Florida game when Cooper came back in the lineup last year. No doubt. Jared said on offense, Chris Brazel. On defense, Keenan Peely. Oh, interesting. He said obvious choices, Nico and Pierce, but I'm going out on a limb. Hey, I think those are great choices.
So Jared's point there, Peely was the guy that I talked about in the spring that I was looking forward to maybe having a kind of a breakout year. Thought that was a big loss for Tennessee last year. I like his versatility. I think he's really going to fit his role in this defense really well. And talk about stacking up some tackles and some stats. That was a guy that I did think about going with, and maybe I might have, honestly, if I didn't mention him in the spring, just because I think he's gonna rack up some tackles, and I think gonna have a chance to be one of the SEC's leaders in that category.
Absolutely. Tony, welcome, buddy. He said, don't know about MVP, but Brew coming back is huge. Nico needs to feed the beast. Amen, brother. Talk about a third down receiver. I mean, the guy's hands are money when you throw him the ball on third down. And so that he is going to be Nico's friend for sure. There's no doubt about that. That's a great It's a great choice. Audrey, welcome, Audrey. She said, brew. Audrey said Cooper came back in the South Carolina game. Yeah, definitely things changed after he returned, for sure. The offense started operating much more smoothly. Andrew, this may be my favorite comment of the night now. Andrew said, I'm pretty sure Rustin is Scotty Scheffler. Can I borrow some money, bro?
How's your golf swing, Rustin?
Not good.
Well, you're in good company as here with me anyway.
Me too, for sure. We actually went and played some golf on Friday. It was a lot of fun. Didn't play so well, but it was a lot of fun being out there. Eric said Rodney Gardner sure don't like the media pumping his players up. He said in his presser they got to earn it, not go off last season. Gardner is a hard-nosed D-line coach, for sure.
I don't expect that group to take a step back unexpectedly. Gardner, is such a proven commodity again in big-time college football. It's kind of like a Heupel offense. You know what you're going to get, and I think that whole unit is the strength of Tennessee's defense for sure. I think a strength of the team. That's going to be fun to watch if they can be as disruptive as they want to be this fall, and really, that can maybe be the determining factor on how far this team gets.
Reed, do you think the defensive line is the deepest position group on the team this year?
I do. Yeah, I do. Just across the board. And you got guys talent, like you mentioned Joseph's. You got talented guys that we haven't really talked about before that I think are going to be productive for Tennessee this fall. It's going to be fun. I love an aggressive attacking defensive front. I know that Tennessee's defense has been the weakness of this team in a lot of ways, but I think this year you might start to see the defense put together some series that are pretty fun to watch.
Yep.
I love that. Absolutely. Totally agree. Bill said, without Brew, we would have lost that Bama game 2 years ago, huh? I totally agree. That was an incredible catch over the middle. I mean, my goodness. Incredible. Carson, welcome, buddy. He said Nico will be MVP after he beats Georgia by 14. Whoa. Carson's calling a shot. I love it.
Carson, babe, calling a shot. Yeah. If that happens, he might win a Heisman. Knocking off Beck in Georgia.
Absolutely. Talk about a Heisman moment. That'd be it.
August is the time when we can dream, guys. I mean, that's it. I like it. We can dream. We can be optimistic.
Today, everybody's 0-0 except Florida State.
Oh.
Zach said I'm a little lost what we're talking about. So, Zach, I'm glad you asked that because that'll be a great finish to this segment. So we asked Reed for his offensive and defensive prediction for player of the year for MVP. And he said Nico Iamaleava for the offense and James Pierce Jr. for the defense. And it's hard to argue with either of those. I agree 100% because those two dudes are going to rack up the stats. And stats are what get you MVP. Let's see. Billy, welcome, buddy. He said, hello, everyone. I wonder if the defense blitzes at times. I mean, more than previous years. I would. Well, I mean, here's the deal. The defensive line is going to be able to get to the quarterback without blitzing. But we know James Banks. I just said James Banks. He's going to catch a touchdown pass at Florida.
Right.
And then he's going to call the defense.
Hail Mary. I was at that game, actually.
You were there?
Yeah, I was there in the very top end zone row in Florida with my grandmother. We were ducking when the planes were flying by. It was not good seats, but it was a great experience. And that catch is one that goes down, I think, in Tennessee lore. And that was it. That was it. That completely deflated that stadium, which is not something that happens very often for Tennessee against Florida.
That's awesome. Well, we know Coach Banks loves to blitz, but he's got some dudes that can cover some ground this year. There's no doubt about that, especially a linebacker.
I think until we see the safeties prove that they can effectively play, I don't see them sending more than 4 until they know very confidently that the safeties are going to be able to perform. If they can get home with 4, they'll just get home with 4. They're not going to send extras.
Rustin, to your point there too, matchup based too, right? Like they're going to have what quarterback are they going against, right? What receiving core are they going against? It's definitely going to be different against Georgia than Arkansas or Mississippi State or UTC, right?
I was about to say UTC. Zach asked a really good question. Zach, I'm going to come back to that here in just a moment when we're going through our game by game with Reed. Zach asked Nico or Brew on offense for MVP, James Pierce Jr. or Boo Carter on defense. That's an interesting pick. I think James Pierce Jr. is a very safe pick. I think it's the best pick. So now you've heard it from the man himself. Those are going to be your MVPs for this season. Rustin has a fun question for Reed for our second little bit here.
So when you think about both of these rosters, who do you foresee on the offensive and defensive sides being kind of the breakout or surprise player from each side? And I'm actually going to twist that question a little bit. I'm also curious to hear, who do you think needs to be a breakout player on each side?
Ooh, that's good.
You just threw a curveball that I didn't prep him for.
I can't remember. Okay, no, I like it. I'm used to Rustin surprising me.
History lessons and curveballs. That's
right. I'm still waiting for the 5 minutes Rustin Reads History podcast that comes out every day. I have with my coffee. I would subscribe. Once on offense, I'm gonna go a tight end. So I don't know if that's going to be Ethan Davis. I don't know if it's going to be Holden Stays. I don't know. I really think when we're talking about this offense and being able to attack the middle of the field and the seam some from the tight end position, especially with maybe Nico being more of a threat with his legs, having some formations that maybe aren't as just wide receiver heavy, some more multiple look formations this year. Just thinking philosophically, how's this offense going to look different? I think you could see more production from the tight end position. And with all the mismatches I think Tennessee's going to get with their receivers, I kind of like sneaking the tight end out there. So that was my initial take, is maybe we get back to a lot of production from the tight end spot this season. So not exactly sure who that's going to be, but I know they've got a couple of talented pass catchers. Really liked what Ethan Davis did before he got hurt. What was that, 2 years ago? Last season? In spring. And for some reason, I'm thinking just philosophically the offense is going to look a little different this year, and you're going to see more production from that position. Could be way wrong, but it's a surprise player, right? So you can't go with the easy answer. Defensively, I think Zach mentioned Boo Carter. That's somebody that I could see getting some snaps and making an impact. We know what kind of athlete he is. We know that Tennessee has struggled with athleticism in the secondary, right? And needed an upgrade there. Now, I think they've gotten that through the transfer portal as well. So you don't want to need Boo Carter to be your to take Rustin's twist on the question. You don't want him to have to be productive, but somebody else, and it's somebody you talked about a lot last year, Rustin, and somebody already mentioned in the chat, is Ricky Gibson. I think can be a really, really, really good defensive back for Tennessee. So that was sort of my first go was Gibson. I think you need somebody in that secondary to anchor it. You need somebody that you can count on. Liked what he did last year when he was healthy, when he was out there. So that Gibson would be my pick. Gibson would be my pick.
I love that offensive pick. I love that. Because I think you're exactly right. I think that they have, even based on what Heupel said we've got a deeper tight end room than we've ever had since I've been here this year. And I think that you're exactly right. We're going to see formations and looks with the tight end that we have never seen since Heupel's been here. I think that is a fantastic choice.
Thank
I
you.
didn't even think of that. And
I think he's excited. I think he's excited about that position. And you know that the chess master that he is, he's going to throw some wrinkles that we haven't seen and utilize that. And maybe it's they save it for Florida, Bama, Georgia, a couple big plays or a wrinkle to the whole offense or different sets, and they just bust it out. I just for some reason that's my hunch.
I love
it. Who do you think needs to be a surprise player?
Ooh. I do think
I have a vote for the offensive one.
Are you going to go offensive line, Evan?
Left guard, Andre Carrick.
Yeah, I was going to say offensive line, the undetermined position.
Yeah,
is the one that you want to solidify for sure. Because that unit really looks great on paper, but you guys know one weak spot in that line really will hamper your offense. It's like running with a flat tire down the interstate. It's not what you want. So that's a good one, Evan. I thought you might go there.
That would be mine. I think Andre Carrick gets put up or shut up time. When he transferred from Texas, from the day he transferred from Texas, all they've talked about is him starting at guard. And it's just been one injury after another. Either he's going to be one of those guys that's just going to stay permanently injured and it's time to move on, or he needs to have a breakout year and really kind of live up to what he's been hyped to be for the last 2 years. Defensively, I'm going to say Andre Turrentine.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Because he's my greatest concern. I said it last week. I'm not a fan. Like, he's going to have to prove to me he deserves to be out there. I need to see it.
Yeah, that's a good pick too. That's a good pick.
And with Jordan Thomas injured, it's even more important. Like, he's got to play major minutes. He's got to perform. If not, we're going to see a healthy dose of Will Brooks all season.
That injury was not what I wanted to see. That was when I got that update. I thought, oh no. So that's where I even got maybe Boo Carter gets some playing time back there. Don't want him to, but he could.
That's exactly right. Some folks are chiming in with their breakout players of the year. Keg 2071 said, "Go Big Orange." Absolutely. Zach made a really good point. He said Dante Thornton Jr. needs to be a breakout player. I think that is a fantastic choice. Yeah, Zach. I think that's a great choice. We need Dante Thornton Jr. to be playing like he did against Missouri before he got injured in that game. I hate it. I hate it that he got injured that game, because that was by far and away his best game of the year last year. And then he ends up getting injured. And even on the play he got injured on, he made just an unbelievable catch in the end zone. I think that's a great choice, Zach.
He was on my radar too. I think you started seeing him find his stride and find his kind of chemistry in the offense last year, right before he got hurt. And you saw the potential after just really struggling. It was almost unplayable at times early in the season. And we knew he was a better talent than he was showing, right? And so it's just a matter of staying on the field, staying healthy. And that wide receiving core, it's got a lot of weapons, and I do expect him to have I really do expect him to have a good year this year.
Totally agree. If you're just joining us, we got 166 people across all three platforms with us right now. Thank you so much for joining us. We're talking about who will be the breakout players this year, surprise players on offense and defense. Carson said Deshaun Bishop on offense. Great choice. If you watch our show We're up to 171 now. So if you watch our show, you know that Deshaun Bishop is someone we've talked about a lot. And so I think that's a great choice. Boo Carter, a surprise player. I think that's a good pick. And I think, like, Reed and Rustin were saying a minute ago, Boo may be forced to play more than they had anticipated him playing based on just injuries and that kind of stuff already that have happened. So I think that's a good one. Zach said the whole secondary needs to be breaking out on defense. Amen, brother. I think that's a great point. Bill said, I think Boo gets a lot of playing time this year. He shocks everybody on both sides of the game. So do we expect him to see some time at punt returner? What do y'all think?
I think.
Go ahead, Reed.
No, I think that wouldn't surprise me. I don't think they've got anybody nailed down on that position yet. I mean, that's kind of a daunting spot to throw a true freshman in. You don't see that a ton, But it's also, hey, how do we get our best athletes on the field, and where do we put them? So that wouldn't surprise me. I don't think that's going to be their move out of the gate. Could be wrong.
I agree totally.
I still say Squirrel returns punts, and Boo and Deshaun Bishop return kicks.
And I think that scenario right there with Squirrel White returning punts and Boo and Deshaun Bishop returning kicks, that is a dynamic return game. I mean, that is dynamic. Some people might say, well, Peyton Lewis might be returning kicks. I don't think so. Because, listen, if they can play Peyton Lewis in 4 games and preserve his red shirt, that's an ideal scenario. Because Deshaun Bishop, I mean, he's already a redshirt freshman. So if you got him, Dylan Sampson, Cam Selden, if the 3 of them can, no pun intended, but carry the load for the team, and Peyton Lewis can play in his 4 games and preserve his red shirt, that's awesome. Like, that is the best case scenario. And so I hope that happens, but I do think we see at some point this season, we see Boo with the ball in his hands somehow, because the kid is dynamic. He is dynamic with the ball in his hands. Let's see. Mississippi Vol said, that was a great question, Rustin, about who needs to break out. He said he's going to go with Miles Kitselman on offense. So another tight end, just like Reed was saying. I think it's a great choice. And Caleb Herring, ooh, I like that choice too on defense. That is a great choice. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to throw a little extra bit in there for that, because Caleb is now living in the shadow of Elijah's season last year. And that's not fair to Caleb, but that's the reality of it. And people want to see him be better than his brother, honestly. And so I think that's a great choice. So we've got tight ends on offense. I'm loving that still. I think Reed nailed it with that. And I think Miles Kitselman's a great one too. Herb said, do you think we see Boo on offense? I don't, actually. I don't. I think that you'll see him in the return game somehow, but not on offense. Good question. Tony said, I think Deshaun Bishop on offense and Jeremiah Thielander on defense will be surprised. I totally agree. I think Jeremiah's going to surprise a bunch of folks. Let's see. Herb, I think Herb's referring to maybe the offensive line when he said can cover one. Let's see. Zach said Andre still has Texas in him. He's got to bleed the true orange.
Takes a while to get that orange blood transfusion.
Yeah, to go from burnt to regular. True. Right. There we go.
Correct. Orange.
I like that. That's a good way of putting it. Andrew said he agrees the person who needs to break out is whoever's playing left guard and free safety. I think that's pretty fair, actually. I think that's a pretty fair assessment right there. Totally agree with that. Let's see. Mississippi Vol said, as far as who needs to step up, I agree with you on that, Evan. I think Andre needs to take a big step this year. On defense, he's going with Christian Harrison at the star position. Winner, in my opinion. That is a great pick. It is time for Christian Harrison. This is third year. It is time for him to step up and break out. I think that's a fantastic choice.
And
the Christian Harrison pick.
Well, that's ideally, when you're a Morris, Tennessee had so much turmoil on the roster front, coaching front for so long. When you look around the conference, you really the best teams. They got the guys a couple of years before they break out, right? they're not forced to. They're not playing true freshmen at those positions, especially defensively. And that's where you can look at Harrison and think, maybe this is his year. Maybe Tennessee also, just from a roster standpoint, is getting some more depth across the board to where they're not having to throw guys in before they have to. They're not having to put them in positions where maybe they're not ready to succeed yet. But after you have time and strength and conditioning, so many practice reps, so many game reps, special teams reps, you get, I think ideally as a football program, that's where you're getting to. Guys in their second, third year are the ones making the big impacts and the big steps and surprising people. So that's a good one. Yeah, a good one, Mississippi Vol.
JL said, go Big Orange. Eric said, Arion Carter needs to have a breakout season. I think that's a good choice too. He kind of did last year, even as a true freshman. So I think that's a good choice.
A lot of hype around him right now.
Tony said Dante Thornton Jr. should have never been playing inside. When they put him outside, he did better until the injury. I think statistically speaking, that's a fair assessment. Absolutely. Mino Lackey said, hit that thumbs up, y'all. Hey, I think that's a great idea. Mino Lackey always has our back with that because she knows I never remember to say it. And so she's always got her back. She says it for me. I appreciate that. Herb said, everyone agree like FSU is overrated. Is Oklahoma also overrated?
Rustin going in on the Sooners.
Not a fan. Yeah. In our preseason prediction, I have them going 7-5. I think Brent Venables is on the hot seat by the end of the year. They're gonna have to prove to me that they can play at this level. I don't believe it.
If they go 7-5, he probably will be gone, I would think.
At bare minimum, he's going to be on the hot seat. I think they might, just because of the transition from Lincoln Riley, I think they might be willing to give him another year. But there's too many unknowns. There's too many transfers, too much change. They're starting a dude from Northeastern Oklahoma A&M College at the nickel. That's not made up. That's actually his school he went to last year. Pretty sure there were no Squirrel Whites competing against Northeast Oklahoma A&M College last year. And that dude has officially won the nickel job. They released their depth chart today, and he is the starting nickel.
NEOAMC?
Yes, that is it. And if you go, what's even better is if you go on the Oklahoma on his bio on the Oklahoma page, it says NEOAM College. So they abbreviated everything else and spelled out college.
Carson makes a good point. He says, all these names being read off, why can't we beat Georgia by 14? I'm just saying, Vols are back. Hey, I love it, man. I will say I will throw one piece of caution in there. We're saying people who need to have a breakout season, people who have not yet had a breakout season, and so that's a big if right there. I'm just saying. Hopefully they do though.
I do think there is something valuable in what he said. I mean, this is the first time in a long time that I think we actually have the same depth as Georgia. I think Georgia,
at least close to it.
Yeah, I think Georgia's depth is better across the spectrum, but I think overall our depth is equal. which it's been a long time since we have been able to say that.
Audrey emphatically agreed that Florida State is overrated. I'm wondering if she's agreeing that Oklahoma is also overrated. I'm not as down on Oklahoma as Rustin is, but
She posted that when I said 7 and 5. So yes, she agrees.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Man, so I'm old enough to remember back when I worked in sports media, and we made fun of Oklahoma and Baker Mayfield all year, and then he just torched us. And so I've got PTSD from that. I know that was 10 years ago now, I think. So I'm just gonna hold my tongue for once.
Totally understand
in my life.
I think for me, the biggest issue is a couple of things. Number one, if you look at their two deep on offense and defense, it is littered with transfers. I mean, they just have a ton of new guys. And they actually announced their depth chart today, and there's 3 true freshmen that won starting jobs. So not only do they have tons of transfers all over the place, they've also got 3 true freshmen that won jobs, which speaks to the depth wasn't quite what they thought it was. You've got a true air raid guy running the offense with a defensive head coach who is going to want them to run the old Oklahoma offense and not, that's balanced between running and throwing, and a guy in the box calling plays who just wants to throw it every down. You have 5 brand new starters on the offensive line. Okay. And they were all recruited to play the old Oklahoma offense and not the air raid. To me, that just spells disaster across the board.
And new starting quarterback. So
yep.
that was my. I know we're not quite there yet, but that was the reason for hope in that game is all that you just said and catching them earlier in the year. Also,
yep, totally agree.
I would rather catch them in September than November for sure.
Amen. So Sam may have just made the best point of everybody for the whole night. Speaking of Oklahoma, he said, may they be wildly successful right up to the Tennessee game. And I'm going to add on after the Tennessee game as well. And here's why that's the most important comment of the night. Based on the SEC's new tiebreaker rules for who gets to go to the SEC championship game, if there is a scenario where Tennessee is tied for second with someone and the other team that they're tied with, they didn't play head to head and they don't have a common opponent, which is very, very likely when you look at the schedule for every SEC team, it is very likely that there could be more than 2 teams tied for second. And they don't have common opponents, and they definitely don't play head-to-head. If that happens, the tiebreaker is the conference record, the conference winning percentage of all the teams that they played that season. So, for example, let's say Tennessee is tied with Texas for second place at the end of the regular season. They don't play head to head. They do have a common opponent, so that could help. But if that didn't happen, or let's say that there was the same outcome against the common opponent, then we go to that tiebreaker, and it is all of their SEC opponents' average winning percentage for the season. So this is a situation where it actually hurts Tennessee to have Vanderbilt on their schedule. It's good that it's an easy W, but now Vanderbilt's average or their winning percentage in conference is then averaged with the rest of Tennessee's conference opponents to get the tiebreaker average conference winning percentage. That's a mess. I hate that because it takes it totally out of the hands of the players and puts it in the hands of all of their opponents. I don't like it, but that's the way it is. And so Sam is exactly right. As Tennessee fans, I hope Oklahoma wins every single game they play, except when they play Tennessee.
And that's
Tennessee needs them to.
that's the spot that as we think about the season, and obviously, preseason predictions and what actually happens, not necessarily very accurate. But when you look at Tennessee's schedule on paper, the Vols play, if you're going by SEC Media Days, predicted order of finish, Tennessee plays, you know how many teams it is picked to finish ahead of them? 2. Georgia and Alabama are the only teams Tennessee plays picked to finish ahead of them in the SEC. So potentially Tennessee has an easier schedule for once, which is crazy when you play at Georgia and you host Alabama and go to Oklahoma. But that hurts you in a tiebreaker scenario, but hopefully we don't get there, right? Hopefully we don't get there, because the Vols get Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt, the teams 3 picked to finish at the bottom of the conference. And they also get Florida, that's 4 of the 5 bottom teams in the conference, and Kentucky. That is 5 of the 6 bottom teams in the conference, according to preseason rankings. So, Tennessee takes care of business against those teams, stacks up some wins, and then maybe it doesn't matter.
Now, that's some good reporting right there, Reed. I like that. That's good stuff. But not good for the tiebreaker.
Right.
Let's see here. Zach said 16-0 with a natty, so they get 2 natties in the same year. Love it, Zach. Carson said undefeated, baby, calling it first. And then Zach with my favorite comment, Carson, you must be new, friend. It's what I do.
Hey, there's room for more than one hype guy. There's room.
That's right. That's right. We like it, Carson. Zach will have you ready to run through a brick wall. He will be. He'll pump you up.
You cannot have too many hype guys.
Zach said, by the way, congrats on 150. I appreciate that, Zach. You're a big part of it, buddy. Like he said, this year has my hopes really accelerated. Been wary, but this year is looking savage, especially after those stats Reed just read. I like that. That's good stuff. And we're going to get to his game-by-game predictions here. Herb said, with this possibly going 10-2 and 5 to 6 spots locked up, depending on what Notre Dame does it get us in the playoffs? All right, I'm going to save that. I'm going to save it. We're going to come back to it at the end if we got time, because that's a really good question. Sam asked another good question. He said, how does that tiebreaker affect Mizzou? It kills Mizzou is what it does, because Missouri's schedule is so horribly weak. It is the easiest schedule in the SEC.
They're not going to be up there this year. I'll make that prediction. They're not going to be in the top 2.
I mean, that their schedule, it will remove them. Even if they make it to the top 2, that tiebreaker is not going to help them, because their schedule is even easier than Tennessee's. And so Tennessee doesn't have an easy schedule, but Missouri does. Let's see. Zach said, yeah, look, everyone in the world's picking Georgia to beat Clemson week 1, but I'm on the Clemson side. Hey, well, I would say I hope you're right, but I don't, because we need Georgia to win.
We never need Georgia to win, Evan. Nope. We never need Georgia to win. If they go 0-16, 0-12, sorry, I would love it.
Well, actually, you know what? That tiebreaker is conference games. So,
right?
Yeah, let Clemson run them out of the place. That's fine with me. Let Clemson run them out of the stadium. Tony said, Texas and Missouri have the easiest schedule in the SEC. Wouldn't it be terrible if they played an SEC championship? Yeah, for sure. He said he predicts Texas and Georgia in the title game.
Texas has now lost 2 of their top 3 running backs for the season. I don't think you can put them up there anymore. They got major issues.
So let's get to, if you're just joining us, we got 355 people with us right now across all 3 platforms. Welcome, first of all. Reed has given us his defensive MVP prediction, his offensive MVP prediction. He's given us surprise players to look out for on both sides of the ball. So now we're going to get to game-by-game predictions. And speaking of game-by-game predictions, I just wanted everybody to know that Rustin and I, as the Vol Bros, we do a college football pick'em challenge every year. And this year is no different. And so if you go to our website and you click on contest in the top there, it takes you here. And I'll actually put this link in the comments here on Facebook and YouTube, and then also on Twitter. So now it is on both places. I just put it on Twitter as well. So this is super fun. Every week we pick the 10 best games nationally. And you just register right here. It's only $5 to enter, and if you win, you get a $50 gift card. Last year, the winning team was Milton Has a Cannon. He won a $50 Alumni Hall gift card. So super fun. We picked the like I said, the 10 most nationally meaningful games each week, and it's a blast. It is so much fun. The winning person last year went 93-37, which is very impressive. I was close. I was only 3 games off. I was 90-40. But it's a blast. Like I said, only $5 to enter. Reed is an honorary bro, which means that for this year, Reed, we'd love to have you join us. You're free, man. We're as a gift to our honorary bros. Y'all can enter for free, and so all you gotta do is just pick the games each week. Use that same team name, and I'll know it's you. And we'd love to have you join us. To give the $5, you can do one of two things. You can either do a super chat on our live stream here, or a super thanks if you're watching it later. And you could also, on the website at the very bottom, there's a little donate button. You can do that, and it's via PayPal. So either way works for us. It's a blast. I mean, seriously, so much fun. It's a really good time. So we hope you join us. You do have to make picks by Wednesday of this week, because the first game is this Thursday. It's North Carolina at Minnesota. So if you'd love to join us, we'd love to have you. It'd be a blast. So with that being said, Reed, let's get to the thing we're all most excited about, and it is this right here. Not the lawn equipment and the steel lawn equipment there. It's actually Tennessee's football schedule. We are starting this year against the Mockingbirds of UTC. So, Reed, what do you think about that game? Any doubt on that one?
Hopefully not, right? I remember I took my now 5-year-old daughter to the Austin P game last year, thinking, like that'll be a good game to take a kid to, and we'll have a good time. And the outcome of that game was in doubt late into that game, and so people in my section were very angry, and I think teaching her some hand gestures she didn't know yet. So hoping that doesn't happen this weekend, because I'm thinking about taking her this weekend. I think Tennessee will run away with that game. Hopefully get to play some extra players, not show too much. Let's just kind of keep it vanilla, run your base offense, kind of treat it like an exhibition, give some money to an in-state school. I like all those things to start the season. So W number 1.
That's what I'm talking about. Earlier, Zach asked a question. He said, with the first game being against your hometown college, which Zach knows we're from Chattanooga, he said, how do you feel about that? So Rustin and I are both from Chattanooga. I'm actually a 4th generation UTC mock. So I did graduate from there. I will be wearing orange this Saturday. Do I cheer for UTC every other game? Absolutely. I mean, Rustin and I remember going when I was 5 years old to Chamberlain Field at UTC, sitting up in the next to top row with the Pedigos from our church sitting in the row behind us. And I remember watching Terrell Owens play it on Chamberlain Field. We had season tickets every year. But when they play Tennessee, it's Tennessee. So that's it. We're not the mock bros. We're the Vol bros for a reason. My wife said she will be wearing her blue and gold that day. Every other day she's wearing orange, but that day she's wearing her blue and gold. And that is totally fine with me. Reed, we got a neutral site game week 2. Well, I guess you could call it a neutral site. It's pretty darn close to Raleigh, but going to Charlotte against NC State. Definitely not 2012 when, Tyler Bray was throwing touchdowns to Cordero Patterson and he burst onto the scene. What do you think about this game at NC State or against?
Yeah, I'm glad that that's not the opener for the season, because I do want Tennessee to get their footing under them a little bit, hopefully against UTC this weekend or Chattanooga this weekend. And NC State, sneaky game potentially. Tennessee's going to have to play well. I like that this is a neutral site game, obviously, and not at NC State. I'd feel a lot worse about it if it was at NC State. Don't sleep on the Wolfpack this year. I think I had them in the top 25, like 22nd or 24th or something in football time this year. Got a bunch of returning starters from last year's team that was competitive in the ACC. I think all the metrics have them kind of a top 20-ish team. It's going to be a good early test for Tennessee, I think. Like I said, I think you've seen Heupel. Again, I'm going to kind of appeal to the history of Heupel's teams here. They've played really well generally on the neutral site games against a team where they're going to have a talent edge as well, and I think also a continuity edge. So I'm going to go Tennessee. I don't necessarily think this is going to be a beautiful football game. Wouldn't surprise me if NC State has a lead early, maybe Tennessee kind of knocking some rust off, figuring things out. And that's going to be a test of Tennessee's defense too, early in the season. We're going to find out some things about secondary most likely in that game. So I think it's one of those that Tennessee should win. I kind of look at the season as tiers of games. You've got your scheduled wins. You've got games you're probably going to lose, and then you've got the games kind of where the season is made. That's a game Tennessee has to win to achieve its goals, and I think they will.
I think that's a great point, especially about the secondary. We're going to learn some stuff that day. I think it's a great point. Austin, thank you so much, buddy. Austin gave $20, said this is my buy-in for the pick'em. It was only $5, so I really appreciate that. That's awesome. If you know 4 other people, you can sign them up too. And he said, go Vols, taking my 3-year-old to his first game against UTC. Oh, that's cool. He said, I have to start him early. Hey, I respect that. That's cool, man. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. Good job. Good dad in there, Austin.
Carson said, what's up, Vol Bros? Looking forward to a great season. Go Big Orange. Absolutely, man. Glad to have you with us. Absolutely. So, Reed, we got him 2-0 going into week 3 against Kent State. That's back at home. What do you think happens there?
W. I think Tennessee's going to start out 3-0. I do like, with some of the questions with the roster like we're talking about, I think you're going to find some things out about it against NC State. Try to make some tweaks, get it right against Kent State before you go to one of the biggest games of the year, September 21st at Oklahoma. That game to me is going to be one of probably 2 to 3 games where the season is decided. So hopefully Tennessee's rolling in there 3-0, feeling pretty good about the defense, the back end of the defense, which I think seems to be our biggest concern. And then for a big matchup against a team that I think Rustin thinks Tennessee is going to beat.
I think it's an overtime game, personally. I think Tennessee wins in overtime. Very similar to Pitt in 2022.
That was such an underrated game. I was thinking about that Pitt game today, actually, as I was thinking through this season and how I actually watched that game with the UT alumni watch party in New York City. And that was wild. This huge group in downtown Manhattan gets together and watches the game. So it was a blast. It was one of the most fun times I've had watching a football game not in Neyland.
That's cool. So
if you're ever up there on Tennessee's playing, I recommend going. But that was such a nerve-wracking game. I thought then Tillman just kind of took over there and got a couple big stops, and it's going to take something like that. I think it's going to be close. I agree with everything Rustin said earlier. I'm not necessarily sold on Oklahoma this year as a playoff contender. I'm not. I know they won 10 games last year. This is a different team. This is not last year's Oklahoma team. and Rustin laid it out really well. But you're breaking in a new offensive line and a new quarterback, and we get him for the fourth game. I like that. I think Tennessee's going to be able to put pressure on them. I think Tennessee hopefully can control the line of scrimmage in that game. I do have concerns about sometimes Tennessee likes to lay an egg on offense on the road. So hopefully it's not that game, because I really think this is one of those games that Tennessee has to win. They have to win if they're going to go 10-2 and be in playoff contention.
One little fun fact. Again, Oklahoma released their depth chart today. Cooper Mays in that Oklahoma game, every snap is going to be lining up across from former Vol Dejon Terry.
That's funny. Yeah.
A little extra juice there.
I like Rustin's knowledge of both history and Oklahoma's 5 deep. In addition to being a Scotty Scheffler lookalike, he's an expert on the Sooners and history. So yeah, that's the game. When I was talking about the season being in tiers, right? That's a game that I think is a 50-50 game, Evan. I'm with you. I think it's a toss-up for me. I'm gonna lean Tennessee. I'm gonna say they start out 4-0 because Tennessee's catching them early, and like I said, they're breaking in new offensive line, new quarterback. I just think it's going to be a lot. If that was a neutral site game, I would definitely pick Tennessee. But I'm going to go, 51-49, leaning Vols win on that, and hopefully Tennessee gets out to a 4-0 start, and then they get a nice open date to kind of reset.
I love it. Well, because let's be real. This is Nico's first true road game. Because Iowa, I guess I should say first true road game as a starter. Because right. Iowa, that's a neutral site. NC State, that's a neutral site. And so this is his first true road game and his first SEC game as a starter. So it's a big game for Nico in hostile territory.
Oklahoma too, I'm a big believer in talent wins football games. And Tennessee is a more talented team than they've had under Josh Heupel, and Heupel's probably going to have a couple special things dialed up for his return to Norman as well. But Oklahoma's a talented team. If you go by all the recruiting rankings, if you go by 247 Sports, I like their composite kind of talent ranking, which takes into effect losses, transfers. Oklahoma has the 5th most talented roster in the SEC, top to bottom. It's going to be a battle. It is going to be a battle for sure.
Absolutely. Mr. Osborne, thank you. You are the man. Thank you so much. You gave $5 super chat. So hopefully he's joining us for the Pick'em Challenge, because that's his entry right there. He said, I'm an ETSU alum, but when the Bucks play with the Vols, it's always go Big Orange. Absolutely. Totally understand. He said, other than Tennessee, it's go Bucks. But congrats on episode 150. Thank you so much. And Mr. Osborne, if you go to thevolbros.com/contest with that $5 super chat, you can join our college football pick'em challenge. That'd be awesome. Austin said, I can't tell my son to root for the orange team his first game. The opener should be in our traditional unis. I agree with you. I mentioned that on our last show. Don't get me wrong. I love the Smoky Grays, especially this year's. I think that they did a good job on them. I just wish the first time they run through the Power T, it was in orange and white. But that's just me. We're starting the season not in our regular orange and white. But that's okay. I'll get over it. Let's see. Carson said, I think Tennessee goes 12-0 or maybe 11-1 with a loss to Georgia. Hoping for a win there. That would be fantastic. Just take it out of the tiebreaker's hands. Just win it all. Like he said, she agrees Rustin brings the details. Andrew said, I agree, Reed. Vols must beat Oklahoma to have a good year and get started on the right foot. Absolutely. The loss will be very demoralizing. Rustin and Reed, can we all agree, in order for Tennessee to make the college football playoff, they have to beat Oklahoma?
Yep.
I don't think they have to beat them. I think it's a lot easier if they do. It's an uphill battle if they don't, because then your margin for error is zero right after that.
Exactly.
And
They would
really,
have to run the table.
it's. I mean, we can get into like what does 10-2 get you? 10-2 in 2022 would have gotten you in. So will it get you in 2024?
I don't think so.
It's going to be they're going to be on that bubble. I think pretty much everyone thinks they're kind of that bubble tier of college football playoff contender this year. A team that I'm worried about that Tennessee doesn't play is LSU. They lost a ridiculous generational talent at quarterback, but they've won 10 games every year there. It seems like under Brian Kelly, and they actually hired a defensive coordinator. They'll have an actual defense this year, not Swiss cheese. And so I think that's a team that maybe in the SEC you look out for making some noise that's not named Georgia or Texas, which seem to be all the hot picks. But that's where Tennessee's schedule maybe worked out because they don't get LSU or Ole Miss or the teams that are picked to finish ahead of them.
That's a good point. So you have us going 4-0 into the bye week. We do get a bye week after Oklahoma before going back out west to Arkansas. Now, personally, I think that is a huge advantage for Tennessee because we all know it has not been pretty in Arkansas and Orange lately. I'm not even going to think about the play I'm thinking about in my head right now where we missed 11 tackles on one play, but that was at Arkansas. It hasn't been stellar there for the Big Orange, but if there's one thing Josh Heupel has proven, it's that his teams always play well coming off a bye week. So, Reed, what do you think happens when they go out to Arkansas the first weekend of October?
Yeah, I'm not worried about that game as much as I like Sam Pittman. But I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the SEC. Won one conference game last year. I don't see them making some giant leap forward this year. But I'm with you. I've got bad memories. I've been there. I've seen Tennessee get beat there. It's not the fun experience. But I love that coming off a bye and makes me feel a lot better about it. Heupel off a bye just feels really good. One thing, guys, that I don't like about this schedule though is we're up to. Our next game that we're going to talk about is October 12th, and that is the first decent game in Neyland Stadium this fall.
That's a good point.
I don't like, and I guess that's where you get the neutral side NC State game, and you got a couple road games to start. Just the way the schedule falls, you're halfway through the season until you get hopefully your first good competitive game in Neyland.
That's a great point. Austin said, I like the Smoking Grace too, don't get me wrong. So he agrees with me. He said, I love the uniform, just wish they weren't the first game. I get that. Audrey said, Rustin reminds me of a younger version of Tom Mattingly, absolute encyclopedic knowledge of the Vols. Yeah, I'm in good company here between Reed and Rustin. We got some knowledgeable folks here. So this is a good company right here. So Reed, you mentioned the next game. We got Florida no longer in September. This will be an October game. They have already announced that it will be a Manning cast game, which is really cool. Peyton's first college football Manning cast. So that's exciting. I think the curse of Peyton is over. Depends on who you talk to on Vol Twitter, but I'm of the opinion that it's over since we beat Alabama and won a national title in baseball with him in the stands. So, Reed, what do you think about this Florida matchup? I know it's Florida, but what do you think?
So I mentioned my tiers of games, right? So my Florida is in that. Take if you can take the name away, take the logo away, take the history away. That's in that. Hey, this is going to be a battle. I kind of look at it like NC State. That's going to be a battle, but it's a game Tennessee should win. Now, how often have I said that in my life? And Tennessee goes out there and lays not just an egg, but a dozen eggs, right? I mean, they just, I don't understand what it is about it. But at the same time, last time they played here, Tennessee, it didn't look like they were going to take care of business for a minute. It got a little scary at the end, but Tennessee took care of business against Florida under Heupel. I think they'll do that again October 12th.
That's what I'm talking about. I can neither confirm nor deny that I was standing in my living room in 2022 with 8 seconds left on the clock, thinking to myself, so this is how it's going to be, huh? This is how it's going to
There's a scenario where Billy Napier comes into this game sitting at 2-3. And if he loses, he's 2-4. And if he loses badly, this may be Billy Napier's last game in Gainesville.
You think they'd fire him that early in the season?
I think if it's bad enough, and if the internal issues are as strong as people are insinuating they could happen.
Well, this week is huge for him personally. Like, I mean, they got to beat Miami. If they don't beat Miami, they are in a rough spot for the rest of the season, because this is the first few games are their easiest games of the season because their schedule is ridiculously hard. We've said it on here multiple times. Florida may have, no exaggeration, the most difficult schedule in the history of college football this year. It is unreal what they have done with that schedule. I don't know who does not like Billy Napier internally, but whoever it was has set him up for failure this year. It is not fair what they've done to him. That schedule is absolutely brutal. The only somewhat reprieve they have the whole season long is they play Samford 1 week. That is the only reprieve the whole year. So
didn't they give them a game though? Like, what was that, 2 years ago?
Yep.
So
that's the thing.
It may not be a reprieve.
Exactly. Of all the FCS teams they could have picked, they picked a good one. Like Samford's legitimately good.
Right.
So that's why it's just they got some tough sledding ahead of them down there. Let's see. Let's see here. Austin said Lane will be in Gainesville next year. Now that would be funny.
Oh.
His daughter's now a freshman at Ole Miss. I highly doubt he leaves.
Ole Miss is going to have he's got everything he needs there for sure. That's another team that I think could be in that playoff picture, SEC championship picture. If we're assuming Georgia's won, we're looking for somebody else, Texas, that's not Texas. Ole Miss, LSU, kind of for me the teams I'm looking at.
Ole Miss has a very favorable schedule, very favorable. So it could happen for sure. I have them going 11-1 actually this year. So the third Saturday in October, Reed, they're coming back to Neyland. Kalen DeBoer's first year.
Yeah.
Josh Heupel's fourth year. What do you think happens against Alabama?
I will be in attendance that game for sure, which
That's
I'm excited about. I'm excited about already. Yeah, that's again, big believer in talent wins a lot, covers a lot of wrongs. I think Kalen DeBoer is a good coach. Alabama's got a super talented roster still. I know they had they had transfers out, they had transfers in. They're not going to be a Nick Saban team, but that's going to be an absolute dogfight of a game. One of the things that if you're a Tennessee fan, I suggest you take solace in is under Heupel, Tennessee has played Bama really well. Mm-hmm. If you remember year one, that was a 1-touchdown game in the fourth quarter in Tuscaloosa.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes.
Tennessee wins in year two, and in last year it was a 1-touchdown game in the fourth quarter at Alabama. For whatever reason, they really have played. Tennessee has outplayed their talent versus the Tide. So if that happens again, on October 19th, Tennessee will win that football game. The way I think about the season, guys, is you've got that Florida game is going to be hard. The NC State game is going to be hard, but you should win. You've got Oklahoma and Alabama are the two for me that the season pivots on. You've got to at least split those, right? So you've got to at least split those. For me, for Tennessee, if we're saying what's the win total over under is 9.5, for them to hit the over, you've got to at least split Oklahoma and Alabama. So, but I feel oddly good about Tennessee at home versus Alabama in this scenario. In fact, I feel better about that. I feel better about that game than I do Tennessee at Oklahoma, even though I don't think Oklahoma is very good.
Woo, come on, Reed.
But yeah, I think Tennessee goes 2-0 against the Tide in Neyland under Josh Heupel.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about, Reed. Yeah, yes, sir. That is what I'm talking about. So here's my thought on this, Reed, and Rustin give his thought too. The day before we did our season prediction show, I had Tennessee going 10-2. And as I was putting our graphics and stuff together for that show, I was sitting there looking at it and I was like, man, sometimes you just get a feeling. And I was like, so Heupel beat Saban in Neyland with a team in only a second year here, with a team that was less talented overall than what they have this year, and a defensive line that was nowhere near as good and deep as what they have this year. And they beat a Nick Saban coach team in Neyland. So then I start thinking about it, and I'm like, all right, so Kalen DeBoer's first year against Josh Heupel's fourth year in Neyland with the most talented roster he's had yet. Give me the Vols. I was like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Rustin, what do you think about that?
I actually wasn't concerned about this game. I had it as a win.
Come on.
I wasn't. For the same thing you just said. It's a fourth-year coach with a full roster of his guys versus a first-year coach with a hodgepodge roster that he's not sure he wants. I mean, he's been actively hitting the transfer portal, bringing in guys that he thinks fit his system better.
Did you all see how he redesigned the coach's office at Alabama?
Yeah.
So, Nick Saban had like a very stately looking office with, wood molding all over the place. Very like, it looked like a presidential office basically. And Kalen DeBoer said some stuff he probably should not have said. People asked him why he remodeled it and redesigned it, because now it's like all like super modern looking, and there's like neon glowing or like backlit Alabama logos on the wall and stuff like that. And people asked him, why'd you redesign it? He said, it looked like my grandparents' house. I didn't want to bring players into my grandparents' house. And I was like, dude, you probably should not have said that. But maybe there's already some little trouble in paradise down there in T-Town. So,
that's
up, though.
I'm Rustin. It's a Tennessee. They're not scared of that roster. They're not. I mean, they went down there last year and gave them that. It was tight. Tight, and it shouldn't have been. They have played Alabama well. They're not scared of Milroe. They're not scared. And they got some speed up front that can chase him down. And I'm more worried. I'm more worried about the Oklahoma game than that game.
Well, folks, we got 516 people watching across all three platforms right now. You heard it here first, y'all. 3 people on the screen all picking the Vols to take down Bama in Neyland on the 3rd Saturday of October. That's what I'm talking about. Get pumped, baby. Get pumped. That's what I'm talking about. Some of the comments that came through, Sam said, Rustin makes a good point about Billy Napier. There's going to be pressure to take care of business early to salvage what they can for December signing day. I think that's a fair point. With signing day, I mean, listen, signing day is people can say it's still February and early signing days in December. No, it's not. Signing days in December now.
Well,
And
not only that, but did you see the proposal that's on the table for the NCAA?
mm-mm.
Drop the spring transfer portal period effective immediately. And all 4 Power 4 conferences have already endorsed it. So that rule is absolutely going to happen.
Well, I'm sure that they did endorse it because then they know who their team is when they're
Right.
practicing in the spring.
But what that also means is October, November, and December all of a sudden became transfer portal palooza. I mean, everybody's going to be, because it's going to be the only portal is that December to January portal. So everybody's going to be on the phones making offers to kids under the table. Like, it's going to be a fiasco.
Yeah.
Also,
you're right.
bye bowl season, right? And if you're not in the playoffs,
Oh goodness, yeah.
it's
Reed, that's a great point.
Not that it wasn't already like that, but
yeah,
that's where I think they've got to figure out some incentive structure to incentivize bowls.
Yeah, I totally agree with
players
you.
and coaching staffs, but that's another conversation.
They expect that to be accepted within the next week or two. And they'll immediately kill the spring portal.
So Vols Titans makes a great point. He said, if we want to make that elite step, we need another win against Bama at home. I 100% agree with that.
And that's where I think this is that. To me, this looks like a team to me that's going to go undefeated at home, and maybe have a slip up or two on the road. That's really what I think we're headed toward. We'll see. Obviously, you got your 2 arch nemesis. You got Florida and Alabama back to back, and you don't get a bye between them or before them. In fact, you have a road game at a place you've struggled, Arkansas. That's going to be a tough stretch there for Tennessee. But I think that's going to be where the season is made right there.
Totally agree. Zach says they're going to beat Bama 45-32. That's actually probably a really good prediction. That very well might happen. I think it'll be close. I think it's like a 7-point win or less, but I do think they win. Mina Lackey said that DeBoer's comments about Nick Saban, ouch. Yep, that's right. Let's see. Mina Lackey agreed that she likes that the spring transfer portal going away. She likes that. And Zach said, Reed, please don't remind us of last year. We were up at halftime.
I know. I
we were up big at halftime.
I was, yeah. I don't. It's too soon. It's too soon.
Well, so Reed, that means that after Alabama, Tennessee is sitting at 7-0, and they have a bye week before hosting Kentucky. Does Kentucky have any chance in that game?
No.
I like it. Especially coming off a bye week in Neyland Stadium.
Yeah. At a night game in Neyland, that's not – Kentucky's not winning that football game.
Yeah, and you make it a good point. They have already announced, like it's on the schedule there, it will be a night game. What time it starts, we don't know yet because ESPN has got some crazy start times going on. Like this weekend is 12:45 kickoff. Like what in the world? But it's a new day, man. It's a new day, I guess. And so Kentucky home at night. We're saying W for that one.
Yes, sir.
All right, so now we're at 8-0, and Mississippi State comes to town. Also a night game in Neyland. What do you think about that one?
Vols will win that game too. I don't think Levy's a good coach. I don't think in year one he's taken his team into Neyland at night and winning a football game.
The cupboard is bare. I'm not sure he's going into anywhere and winning anything. He's got a long road ahead of him.
They will battle Vanderbilt for the toilet of the SEC this year, I think. So that's where it's nice. It's nice. Again, like the fortunate. I'm glad that's not Ole Miss or LSU, right? That's where the schedule looks favorable favorably upon Tennessee this year.
Totally agree. Like you said, Q dark mode for that game. I think you're probably right, actually. You're probably right on that one. Jason, welcome, buddy. Good to have you. He said Oklahoma's dangerous at home, better than Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, etc. Go fact check me. This is a game of the year for both teams with playoff hopes. I certainly agree that Tennessee does not make the college football playoff if they do not beat Oklahoma. Like, they got to win that game, in my opinion.
I still think, it's going to depend on what happens, like, obviously, with everyone else. I still think you have these years where there's a lot more parity, or there's just, a Georgia that goes undefeated or something, and everyone else has 2 or 3 losses, which I could see happening, honestly. 10-2, I still think you're in the hunt. Some things have to go your way.
For sure.
I don't think, but I'm with you, Jason, though. That game worries me more than Alabama, worries me more than Florida, worries me more than NC State. Even though I think so much is in Tennessee's favor with the roster issues at Oklahoma, and they were so bad 2 years ago as well. And the players who carried them to 10 wins last year are gone. The road game, I've been to Norman back in 2014. I went to that game when Tennessee played there. It's not an easy place to play. So that's going to be tough. I always like Heupel's teams in Neyland for sure, even against teams that are better on paper. On the road, it kind of evens out some of Tennessee's advantage.
Totally agree. So, Reed, you got 541 people across all 3 platforms ready to hear your prediction for Georgia.
I'm getting ready to let all 541 of them down because I don't think Tennessee is going to win that football game. Georgia is another class. It's my most despised team in football. The thing they do so well, not only are they deep and talented across the board, but it's not the Mark Richt teams that are having 12, 14 penalties or stupid turnovers, or they don't beat themselves. They are hopelessly consistent, typically. Missouri about snuck up and got them last year, I think, but otherwise they're a robot of destruction. And I don't think, even with all the off the field stuff that we've seen this year, I don't think Tennessee or anybody else is going into Athens and beating them this year.
I totally agree. And to this date, my favorite Reed Carringer quote ever is still when you were talking about your distaste for Athens, and you said, "Grown men bark at you like dogs there." Excellent point.
I will not be in attendance for that game.
Mr. Osborne said, I remember a buddy of mine saying to Vandy fans in 1985 at Neyland after we won 30-0, "We're going to the Sugar Bowl." "Where are you going, Vandy?" "That's right, the toilet bowl." And then Elijah said about the Georgia game, he said, "Unfortunately, Georgia wins that one, and it's not close, sadly." Let's see. Zach said he can't stand Georgia either, even more so than Bama, Florida, or Kentucky. I agree with you, Reed. I think this is the one loss on Tennessee's schedule. I do think that they keep it at a respectable margin. I do, but I don't think that they beat Georgia at Georgia. Now, Reed, I got a little fun fact for you for the UTEP game, because you mentioned Austin Peay earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So last year's Austin Peay game, you remember their head coach on the sideline going bananas and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
So one of our other honorary bros, Tyler Goldberg, did some excellent investigative reporting. That head coach is now UTEP's head coach. So he's coming back to Neyland.
Yeah, I was thinking about that game today and how I don't know that we would ever schedule Austin Peay again, but I guess we did UTEP version.
What do you think happens against the Miners of UTEP?
No, they'll get right. They'll get right after the Georgia game, and march on to close out the season.
Absolutely. Because the next week they go to Nashville to Vanderbilt. Rustin and I have had kind of a humorous running bit here whenever we talk about the redshirt freshmen this year. Because as we all know, they can play in 4 games. And those 4 games are going to be UTC, Kent State, UTEP, and what's the 4th one, Rustin?
Vanderbilt.
your classic road SEC game.
Yeah.
Of course, road game, I say. It will
Vanderbilt
be
have
mostly
a chance?
orange. It will be mostly orange in attendance there, I'm sure.
Yep.
No, Vanderbilt does not have a chance. Which is, it's great for Tennessee. I don't think anybody on the Tennessee side of that really enjoyed when that game was in doubt. It was always nice to have the scheduled win. And that's it. Kind of as we look at the season as a whole, you've got, I had it in tiers here today of scheduled wins, UTC, UTEP, Vandy, Kentucky, Kent State, Miss State. So that gets you to 6, right? So what those have in common is they're all home games except Vandy, which will be a de facto home game in Nashville.
To say, how many times have we had 8 home games in the same schedule? Because that's what we have this year.
Right. So they're all home games. And then I had the next tier up from that was tough battles. Tennessee's going to have to play well, but I think they win. That's Florida at Arkansas for the reasons y'all stated earlier about just that being a bit of despair for us. And then versus NC State, I think. And then my 50-50 games were Oklahoma and Alabama, and then scheduled loss at Georgia. So that's kind of how my brain broke down the season.
I agree 100% with you. Absolutely. Totally agree. So Reed, that's 11-1. Is there any doubt Tennessee is in the college football playoff at 11-1?
They should be in, right? I mean, I still think there's a shot they get in at 10-2. Again, depending on what everyone else does, I think there's a shot to get in at 10-2. So then if you look at they lose at Oklahoma, but they beat Alabama at home, or they win at Oklahoma, they lose to Alabama at home. I don't think their season's done. I think they still have got a shot and they'll be in the hunt. So obviously having to play Georgia every year, going to Georgia this year, that's tough. But otherwise, and those are the two, we're talking about talent again earlier, the 2 most talented teams in the country are Alabama and Georgia. So Tennessee gets them both. So
yeah.
Can they win one of those? That will be tell the tale probably.
And so Herb, earlier in the show, he asked a question: with us possibly going 10-2 and 5 to 6 spots locked up, depending on what Notre Dame does it get us in the playoffs? So let's break down Herb's question here, because he makes a really good question. That is a good point about Notre Dame. They made a good point about this on College Game Day as well. The top 4 spots for the college football playoff will be reserved for the conference champions from the Power 4 conferences. Notre Dame is an independent school. They're not in a conference. So literally going into this season, Notre Dame already knows the absolute highest ranking they can have going into the college football playoff is 5th. Even if they are ranked higher than one of the conference champions, when it gets to the college football playoff, the maximum spot for them is 5th, because the top 4 spots are reserved for conference champions. So when you think about that, we mentioned this, a couple times already in the previous shows, but the number 12 spot is not reserved for the 12th team.
Right.
It is already reserved for the highest ranked group of 6 school. Last year, that was Liberty, and they got boat raced by Oregon. So when you consider you've really got 4 conference champions, those are reserve spots. And the reserved spot for the highest ranked group of 6 school, there are 7 spots left. That's it. Now, when you consider the Big Ten, I think we would all probably be shocked if there weren't at least 3 schools from the Big Ten, if not 4 or 5, that end up getting in. The 3 that will for sure get in are Ohio State, Oregon,
Michigan, and Oregon.
and Michigan. So there's 3 right there. When you look at the SEC, Georgia and Texas are going to be in, assuming Texas can handle that running back position where they've lost 2 guys. Ole Miss has a very favorable schedule. They'll probably be in. So
if we're
if
10
Tennessee's
and 2,
11 and
if we're 10 and 2, that means Alabama's probably 11 and 1.
potentially so. And so, you know, if we're 10 and 2, is there a chance we still get in? Yes. Is it major bubble city? Yes.
Right.
If Tennessee does what Reed just said, which I hope they do, and they go 11 and 1, then Tennessee is in that thing. You can take it to the bank. They will not keep an 11 and 1 Tennessee team who beat who beat Alabama, and their only loss is Georgia. They will not keep an 11-1 team out of that playoff. That just won't happen. So you can take it to the bank. If Tennessee's 11 and 1, it's playoff time, baby. And if they're 11 and 1, that means they're probably hosting a first round game in Neyland in the playoff, and that would be awesome with a capital A. That would be so cool.
December football in Neyland, playoff football in Neyland. Yeah.
How does that sound?
I know.
That is good stuff.
It would be unreal. No, I mean it's so hard at this because there's going to be a lot of surprises. I think with in the SEC and the Big Ten. I think I do like Ole Miss's schedule. I mentioned LSU earlier. You know, I think them actually having a defense, they're going to have a good offensive line under Brian Kelly. That team worries me. Thankful Tennessee doesn't play them. Maybe Texas takes a step back. But I do think you're going to see just every year you're going to have to be in the SEC. You're going to have to be 10 and 2-ish or better to get in. But like I said, you know, Vols were 6th in 2022 in the final CFP rankings. They would have been in.
Absolutely.
At 10 and 2. So it's not impossible. I know it's a little different structure with the 4 conference champs getting buys through the first round, which I do think is deserved. I think that's deserved. You win your conference, put some weight on the regular season. Give them an easier road.
I think the bigger issue with a 10 and 2 team in the SEC getting in is the way everybody else's schedules fell. So like we did a preview of every single team in the SEC. I had one team at 12 and 0 and 3 or 4 others at 11 and 1.
3. Yep.
Evan had one at 12 and 0. Yeah. Evan had one at 12 and 0 and how many at 11 and 1?
4.
Yeah. So, you know, the way the SEC made the schedules this year, the big boys don't really go head to head very much. So
I think that was on purpose. Also.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
So Alabama, I think, may end up being the odd team out because they have to play Tennessee, Georgia, and Texas.
Yeah. That's why I think 12 and 0 and 11 and 1 in the SEC definitely gets you in. I'm not sure 10 and 2 does because there may be so many that are sitting at 11 and 1.
Yep, absolutely. So let's get real wild and crazy to end the show here. The Big 12 conference champion is the one that gets the automatic bid. Oh, I'm sorry. Alabama plays Oklahoma this year, not Texas. That was my fault. I need to clarify that. Alabama has to play Alabama has to play Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia, and Missouri, which who knows what Missouri's going to do. But so they got some games on that schedule. They may be the odd man out for a change. Oh man, talk about nightmare scenario for Kalen DeBoer. But let's get a little on crazy here to end the show. Big 12. I think everybody's banking on Utah being the conference champion. Let's say something crazy happens and Utah gets upset by a team in the conference championship game. And now you've got an automatic bid from the Big 12. That's a top 4 seed. They'll be the 4th seed. And Utah, sitting at maybe 1 loss, ends up getting in. Now you've got a spot stolen from the playoff.
It's just like the NCAA tournament, right? Like you get your Shore conference champ gets knocked out by a team that had no chance of getting in. I think it's going to take some kind of. They're going to have to end up tweaking this, and you know they will. They're already talking about expanding it. They're going to end up tweaking how they do it, I'm sure. It's going to take probably 4 years for I think it to kind of get to a more sustainable, equitable system.
Totally agree. Andrew said, "I hope there's not too much pressure on Nico since everyone seems to think he's already a world beater." And also hoping hype doesn't get uptight prior to Oklahoma, i.e. Fulmer against Spurrier. That'll be an interesting. You know that's going to be the storyline all week leading into Oklahoma is Josh Heupel returns home, you know, that kind of thing. So, well, Reed, we appreciate you, man. You are so good to us with your time, and we appreciate that. It's 10:39. I legit thought we'd be done by 10, and we're not. So I apologize. We've had a lot of great comments come in. Sam said, I see a lot of SEC teams counting Auburn as an easy win. Some of the final records are going to surprise people and not in a positive way. Yeah, Auburn can sneak up on some folks this year, no doubt.
I agree with Sam there for sure.
Yep. One person had Auburn going 11-1 this year. I can't remember which national analyst that was, but I was like, yo, that is a bold prediction. But they definitely are going to win some games. Zach said, good night, early day tomorrow. We'll see you, Zach. It was good to see you, buddy. So for the 573 people watching across all platforms, we appreciate you joining us. We would love for you to join us in our Vol Bros College Football Pick'em Challenge. It is a lot of fun, super fun. You just go to thevolbros.com/contest, and you can register there. It's only $5 to enter, and if you win, you get a $50 Alumni Hall gift card. That's pretty sweet. We pick the 10 best games of the week nationally every week. It's so much fun. Last year we had a whole bunch of people that participated. It was a blast. So we hope all of you do that as well. Reed, thank you again so much for your time. We really appreciate you.
Enjoyed it, guys, as always, and thanks everybody for chiming in. Enjoyed chatting with y'all.
You're the man, Reed. You make our show even better, dude. We appreciate you so much. We hope everybody has a great evening. It is game week, baby. It's game week. So join us this Thursday night. Actually, it might be Wednesday. I got to talk to Rustin about that. We probably could do Thursday, but I will be in an automobile going down I-75. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But we'll be alive on one of the 2 days. So just stay tuned with us. We'll be doing our preview show for UTC. Spoiler alert, I think we're both going to predict a win. But we hope everybody has
already did.
Yeah, we did. But we'll give like our projected player of the game and that kind of stuff. Hope everybody has a great evening. We will see you all very, very soon. Go Vols, baby. Go Vols.